Well, good morning again, class. Meet my little girl. This is Willa. Willa's 2 years old. She's my youngest. She was just complaining inside, and Daddy was sitting outside doing some work for class, so I told her she could come sit on my lap. As we think through these precious little children, it's a great place for us to begin conversation about the topic of this course. Precious, bubbly little kiddos like little Willa are God's blessing to us. They're a gift from God, entrusted to our care. Yet we're told in Romans 5 that as a result of Adam's sin, they're born into this world sinners in need of God's grace. And so Tripp's videos from this past week, as well as Joan's interaction, is attempting to help us think, how do we train the hearts of these young joys to know their sin, know their need for Jesus, and hopefully live lives that will follow after him. We recognize that the easiest thing for us to do with the Willows of the world, as she's 2 and doing the typical toddler things of 2, is to address behavior. Um, Jesus would contrast the fruit of our actions with the roots of our heart. And so it's easy for me to see Willa do certain things that are behaviorally not what I would desire, and discipline or challenge or redirect those various behaviors. A far more difficult thing is to think about what is the heart of a child, and how is that producing these behavioral manifestations. And as we know about our own sanctification, pursuit of Christ likeness, that's really where the work happens. It's when we can address our hearts and ask questions about what idols I'm worshiping, what loves I'm pursuing, what areas of unbelief are demonstrated in my heart that are causing these actions. Like, let's take worry for an example. I feel worry. I'm anxious. That anxiousness makes me irritable, and I mouth off in anger at a coworker or my wife. Well, I mean, clearly that's fruit behavior. Well, what's going on in my heart? Well, in my heart, worry is demonstrated. But even more than that, what's driving the worry? Is it a lack of belief that God's going to provide for me? Is it a fear of whether or not He really controls the future and is going to do what He says He's going to do? Either way, it's one thing to say, Matt, stop worrying, stop worrying. It's a far different thing to say, Matt, do you trust in God to provide? Do you realize that He is sovereignly in control of the world? Now, I can do that to myself as a 38-year-old grown man. It's a difficult challenge to consider how we do that to 2-year-olds or 4-year-olds or 6-year-olds, so on. But that's the place to begin. And even if we're introducing the categories of that now, that the children don't fully understand, it's still an appropriate and needed place to begin. I remember back when I first had kids, when my first child was 1 or 2, somewhere along there, we took her to the dentist. And I remember the dentist looking at her teeth, saying everything was fine, and challenging us to brush the teeth. And we're like, hey, listen, she's only got 1 tooth. There's not much going on in there. And why do we need to begin now? Why don't we just wait till the teeth come in? And the dentist said, no, you need to go ahead and get in there, even if it's a toothbrush on your finger or toothpaste on your finger. You need to train her to that this is a normal practice, that this is what's going on. You want to prepare her now for what's going to come later. And I think that same truth holds sway as we consider training the heart of a child. They may not have all the categories. The teeth may not be in, but we can begin to do the work necessary to address the heart, to get in there, to model that illustration, in hopes that God will produce godly fruit as their cognitive skills and their spiritual processing grow over the years ahead. It's a beautiful challenge, and one that we're going to continue to consider in this course. Many blessings.